One of the biggest talkers on social media over the weekend came right here from inside of the Tegna ABC family, and it started on Daily Blast Live with a person that you guys definitely know as a comedian, but who stands for social causes. His name is Al Jackson. He's one of the hosts of Daily Blast Live, and he's here with us today. Al, you had a deep conversation following off of Brandon London's commentary on what it's like to not only be a black man who was in the NFL, but a son of a veteran, a grandson of a veteran, and what the conversations are like now that the media has to figure out a way to find opinion and a place for opinion in this story. So what have your reactions been like after having these conversations on social media?
Well, this weekend was really eye-opening for me. I gained about 20,000 new followers. A lot of them were vets, a lot of them thanking me for what I said. And basically what I said is how I felt. I feel like we're having two conversations, and that means we're not having one conversation. The two conversations is, are you going to kneel and disrespect the troops at football games? But the thing is, the kneeling has nothing to do with the military. The kneeling has to do with black men being murdered every day on YouTube by the police and by just general citizens. You know, obviously the guy that killed Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman, he's just still walking around. So we don't want to have that conversation. So in order to avoid that conversation, what we do is we say it's disrespectful to the media. So I said, okay, if that's disrespectful to the media, to our veterans, then why don't we do more for our veterans? I've done several USO tours, Korea, Kosovo, and when these guys come back over here, they have PTSD issues from what they've seen after a second, third, fourth deployment, but we do nothing for them. Our vets are twice as likely to be homeless. Our female vets are 4 times as likely to be homeless, and we do nothing for them except give them lip service at football games. And I'm like, if we really care about our vets, then let's do something. Let's sit down and figure out a way so we can stop this ridiculousness. We have these young, highly trained, highly skilled young people coming back, and we have nothing set up for them. Mental health services are inadequate. A lot of our VAs are dilapidated. So if you really care about the vets, then let's sit down and figure out a way to do this. Let's stop with the name calling, and let's stop acting like the NFL players don't like our military, because we all know that's disingenuous.
Absolutely. And let's talk about what President Trump said directly and how you and Brandon both intimated that he's trying to flip the narrative on this one. And the conversation, like you said, isn't about veterans at all. You could make it about that, and you successfully did on Friday, but let's get back to the heart of what's at this issue, and that's violence. Violence from police officers towards young black men and women in this country, and ways that we can have conversations about this in the media, because while the reaction that I saw in general towards what you said on Friday was positive, I did see a number of people chime in and say, you know what? This is a man whose name represents the news to me, and how is he able to step out there on a limb and give an opinion? And so I'm wondering now, waking up the day, 2 days after you had this conversation, what is it like going through those Facebook, those Twitter comments, and reacting to what people are saying?
I'll tell you this: if you don't have time to have a cup of coffee, just read your Twitter comments in the morning. That'll wake you up.
That is for sure.
Look, people have their opinions, and I'm allowed to have mine, because I became a comedian, because I work for the news, doesn't mean I'm not allowed and entitled to my opinion. If you don't agree with it, that's a good thing. That means that we can start a conversation. A conversation doesn't mean name calling. A conversation doesn't mean attacking the other side. It doesn't mean threats or things like that, veiled threats, or talking racism through dog whistles. It means just like, let's have a conversation. It's okay for two adults to have a differing opinion. That's the beautiful thing about this country. We can hopefully come to a conclusion. If not, maybe at least I'll learn a little bit more about your side. But as long as there's no name calling, I'm down to talk any day, all day, every day.
So we have some viewers that we're streaming this right now on Facebook, and Dan Cooper wants to know, what about the videos of cops being harassed and beaten by suspects? How do we feel about those conversations, and where is the space for that in this discussion?
I'm sure those videos exist. I mean, cops put their lives on the line every day. I think that, again, what I would say to Mr. Cooper is let's not conflate these two discussions. We're talking about cops being brutal and killing people that they don't even have really in custody yet, people that are running away, people that have been choked to death for selling loose cigarettes outside of a corner store. I would ask Mr. Cooper, if we had seen over the last year, if we'd seen 13 white female college students from Florida State shot and killed by police, will we still be having this conversation? Or would there have been a complete shutdown and overhaul of our justice system? Let's be honest about who's being killed here. Let's be honest about what's being viewed as a threat here. People talk about this person was being aggressive and hostile towards the police. I, as an entertainer, have been on many college campuses. I see what goes on Friday and Saturday nights. I've seen people scream in officers' faces, push cops, pour beers on cops, and those people are all still alive to talk about it. So let's be honest about what we're talking about here. Black men are viewed as a threat, and therefore, when they are killed, it's not as shocking because they said, well, he made a move towards him, or he was being weird or shifty or shady. And look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if we're going to treat everybody equally, let's start with our black men.
So here's the thing. This started off as a protest, as we all know, social justice, social rights protest. And I think one of the most nonviolent things you can do is just that. And Colin sat at the beginning of his protest, but then after talking to Nate Boyer, who is an ex-Green Beret, who is an ex-NFL player, decided to show respect to the flag and honor our veterans by taking a knee. And yet somehow that conversation has been changed. The script has been flipped, as we keep saying. And I think a lot of that is in part due to President Trump and the way he's chosen to use or manipulate the media to put forward his point of view. And so we have Jasmine Jamil. Yep, go for it.
I was just going to say, I mean, look, the president knows how to fire up his base. It almost reminds me of Back to the Future. Remember, if you called Marty McFly chicken, he couldn't control himself?
Yes.
With the base, if you say abortion, if you say kneeling for the flag, certain things like that, it's going to cause immigration, build the wall. There are certain buzzwords that he uses to fire his base up. And with the midterms coming up and with as much controversy, we'll leave it at that, that's circling around his administration, whenever things get too hot, he goes after NFL players, he goes after kneeling, he goes after abortion, he goes after immigrants, because that's going to distract his base and fire them up. And he's doing what he has to do as a politician. What I'm asking everybody is to not fall for those tricks and to get ready to have this conversation, because it's going to happen. Injustice will not stand. And for people telling people how to protest, that doesn't work. That's when Ferguson happened, everybody said, see, you're tearing up your own neighborhood, you're throwing bricks, and you're not protesting the right way. Protest quietly. Then Colin Kaepernick quietly took a knee, and people said, that's disrespectful. So you can't protest quietly. You can't protest in the streets with a bullhorn. So you tell me how you want me to protest. You let me know what's convenient enough for you. How would you like me to protest so it doesn't affect your life? Protest is supposed to be uncomfortable.
Correct.
The civil rights protests with the sit-ins and the bus strike made things uncomfortable. If I protest in my basement this weekend quietly, that's not going to affect a lot of change. If you stand in the middle of the highway with a sign and make people go around you, make people read what you have to say, it's going to be uncomfortable for those people, but you will get your point across.
Absolutely. So we have another comment from one of our viewers. This is Jasmine Jamil, and she wants to say thank you so much for telling the truth about how this country treats its vets. She herself is an Army veteran, so she knows firsthand what people are going through. And I remember in the video you addressed that you're the child of a veteran. And so how long has this been weighing on your heart, and what has it been like having this platform of Daily Blast Live to be able to speak to a topic that is clearly so close to you?
I mean, it's been my entire life. I mean, my father passed away a few years ago, but, you know, he was going back and forth to the VA, and, I mean, they treated him as well as they could, but, you know, they're backlogged and overworked over there. I currently have a mother-in-law that's waiting for her appointment. She has double vision, and she can't get in to see a doctor, and she says every time she goes, she has a different doctor because that's what kind of turnover that they have at the VA. So I'm like, look, if we give our veterans, I just want to tell everybody, it takes work to be a citizen. It takes work to be a patriot. Being a patriot doesn't mean you getting hammered in your backyard watching college football and drinking Bud Light. That doesn't make you a patriot. What makes you a patriot is spending a little time out of your schedule to really help people that really genuinely need it. And until we have that conversation, if we decide as a country that we just want to give lip service to our veterans, give them a salute, and have a couple F1 fighters fly over the stadium, and that's considered doing enough for our vets, then that's something we'll have to live with. But I hope that my generation, that our generation, chooses to handle it differently.
Right. So President Trump has talked about having this massive military parade that would cost $20 million. But I've seen plenty of people chime in on our Facebook conversation saying, hey, that $20 million could be used in such a more positive way if we actually gave it to the veterans and gave them the help that they needed in mental health services specifically, which is something that you spoke to. But how can the people that are watching right now on our Facebook Live, how can they help out? What are the quick steps that they can do to make sure that it's not just lip service from them, it's not just a comment on Facebook?
Well, because of my career, I've been lucky enough to be asked to do several USO tours. I did a tour through South Korea and through Japan. I also did a tour all through Europe. And what that tour did, and I'll get to your question in a second because it's a good one. What that tour did for me was it showed me, I think you and I were speaking before I was on air, and I told you my children are in Los Angeles, but I'm in Denver working. And people ask me, how do I do that? You know, one of the motivating factors for that is meeting our troops overseas. They get to go home every 6 months, every year and a half, and they also have kids, but they're making this incredible sacrifice, and that allows me to make this sacrifice for the show that I love. So what you need to do is ask a veteran. Look around, take a little time, and look and see what can you do. What special skills do you have? For some reason, people find me funny. Thank God. So I take my skill and I give it to our vets. If you are good at knitting, if you're a great organizer, if you like to make home goods, whatever you like to do, our vets need it. So take what you do as a skill and apply it to our veterans. And if that's something that interests you, believe me, Google's right there. You can find a million things in your community. You can help out. Just an hour a week would do wonders.
So then, thank you for that thorough explanation, because I'm sure it's going to help plenty of people that are watching right now. But then we have Kim, who's chiming in and saying that NFL players are not setting a good example for her son. And while I can say all day long that peaceful protest is probably one of the best examples for her son, what can you say to her to maybe make her think differently?
Oh, I would tell her that Colin Kaepernick sacrificed his career. Eric Reed sacrificed his career for this. And I think that needs to be noted. An NFL career is usually between 2 and 4 years. They have a finite amount of time to make the amount of money that they're going to make for most of their entire lives. And they sacrificed that because they believed in the cause so much. And I would hope that she would hope that her son at one point in his life would have a cause that he cared about so much that he would be willing to sacrifice his career and maybe even his life for it. Our vets do it every day. Colin Kaepernick is a hero. No matter what you think, he believed in something so much, he quietly sacrificed his career. He didn't tell anybody that. He's not writing any articles. He's not tweeting. He's just quietly going about what he believes in. And that's what this country is based on. So I would hope that that's enough for her.
Here's the thing. He's not just done it one time. He's not just done it 2 times. It's something that it's clearly ingrained in him and part of something that he's going to move forward with. And he's trying to get people to come on board with him. And like you said, it's not loud. He's not screaming it every day, but people are joining him, even if it's Malcolm Jenkins with a solid fist in the air stand of approval. You have people in Philadelphia, where I'm from, that react negatively to what Malcolm Jenkins is doing when at the end of the day, it's silent protest. And so, like you said, I hope that there are little kids out there that are seeing these amazing black men that are making a change in their community little by little, like Malcolm Jenkins. He's going into the Philadelphia Police Department and making sure that the community ties in Philadelphia, in those inner cities, are special and unique so that children don't feel scared when they see police officers anymore. And I think that is what's at the heart of this conversation. And if we can't figure out a way to make our kids feel safe again, we're going to have to keep having these conversations, you and I. And that is scary to me.
Right. And I mean, think about what we're talking about right now. We're having viewers write in saying, what do I do about my son watching a silent protest? I mean, years ago, we were talking about football players being rambunctious and rowdy, bar fights and extramarital affairs and children all over the place. We're talking about men that have started up community outreach programs, people that have gone back to their communities to donate their money and, more importantly, their time and their face to the efforts that they believe in. And now that's a problem. So what does that tell you?
Okay, so Al, I cannot thank you enough for not even just starting this conversation, but giving it a place to live on TV, on daytime television, where conversations like this don't usually live. But What is
Right.
amazing about Daily Blast Live is that you can continue this conversation all the time. You're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, and you guys will be on here at 11 a.m. all weekdays. So I am going to continue this conversation with you, and I charge you with continuing the conversation with the rest of the world because I know you can do it, and I know you're already setting such an incredible example, not only for your kids, but everyone who's watching. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and I just want to tell all your viewers that wrote in, I appreciate perspective on both sides. Please continue to write me directly, to write you, to write our show Daily Blast Live, and just tune in. We'll answer your questions live on air. We're interactive and we're non-combative, so let's have this discussion like adults.
I love that. Thank you so much, Al.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Bye.